Hi folks, we're going to take a look at a couple of questions from page 216. So here we have 7 and 8a. And what they're asking us to do is find the trig ratios for these angles here. Okay, now you notice a denominator of 3 here, a denominator of 6. If I were to see a denominator of 4, you should be thinking that these might be special angles. Because when you think about your 3 acute special angles, it's pi over 3, pi over 6, pi over 4. Okay, so very likely this is going to be another special angle, okay, for which you can use one of those special triangles. Okay, so let's start with 2 over 3. So one thing you're going to want to work on is getting used to drawing these given the angle in radians. So again, there's no units, meaning this is in radians. Okay, so 2 pi over 3. First of all, I realize this is going to be in the second quadrant because pi over 2 is like 90 degrees. So this is bigger than pi over 2, but smaller than pi, because that would be like 3 pi over 3. Okay, so if you think of it here, you've got, pi over 3 would be here, 3 pi over 3, would be along the negative x-axis. So 2 pi over 3 is somewhere here. Okay, so there's my angle 2 pi over 3. Okay, and in order to do this without having to use a calculator, I realize that the related acute angle to 2 pi over 3 is pi over 3, which relates to one of my special triangles. Okay, so notice here as I really try to exaggerate that it's the, a larger angle here. Okay, so the dimensions I use for this type of special triangle are just 1, 2, root 3. Okay, now the fact here is that, well, you know that this is going to have some negative trig ratio values. So there's a few ways that you can identify this. Some people like to put the point on their terminal arm and realize, well, here it's going to be -1 and positive root 3. So specify the x and y value. Okay. Some people don't even bother with that. They just determine the trig ratio and then use the cast rule to figure out which one's going to be positive and which is going to be negative. So sine's going to be positive and cosecant's going to be positive and the other 4 are going to be negative. Okay. Another option, this is one I tend to use so that I don't even have to think about that, is I look at my triangle and where it's positioned on the plane. And I say, oh, well, this side here is going to be a -1, but that's going to be a positive root 3. And then from there I can just read off my trig ratios. So I've got sine of theta is equal to y over r, so root 3 over 2. Okay, while I'm at it, I might as well do cosecant of theta, which is just going to be the reciprocal, so 2 over root 3. Okay, cosine of theta is x over r, so -1 over 2, and I confirm, oh yeah, it's in the second quadrant, cosine should be negative there. So here secant is just going to be the reciprocal of that, so -2 over 1, or just -2. And then we've got tangent of theta is going to be y over x, so -root 3. Okay, and cotangent of theta is just going to be the reciprocal of that, -1 over root 3. Okay, and there you go. So this is how we can use our knowledge of the acute special triangles to find trig ratios of other special angles related to those. Okay, so it'll be the same thing here, 7 pi over 6. So now here, 7 pi over 6, well, this is going to be larger than pi, just slightly larger than pi, because pi would be 6 pi over 6. Okay, so the angle is going to be somewhere here, and think that this is 6 pi over 6. Okay, and then plus another pi over 6. So that means that my related acute angle is pi over 6. And again, from there, I can draw my, similar special triangle there. So this will be 1, 2, root 3. And again, here, the x value is negative and the y value is also negative. Okay, and then from here, I can just read off my answers. So sine of theta here will be y over r, so -1 over 2. Cos of theta will be x over r, so -root 3 over 2. Okay, then we've got tangent of theta will be y over x, so -1 over -root 3, so 1 over root 3. Okay, and then we have our reciprocal trig ratios. So cosecant of theta will just be -2. Secant of theta will just be -2 over √3. Okay, and then here we've got cotangent of theta is just equal to positive √3, and they all make sense because your cotangent and tangent should be the ones that are positive in the third quadrant. Okay, so just to recap, step number 1 is to identify where the angle lives on the Cartesian plane. Step number 2 is use the related acute angle in order to determine which special triangle you're going to use, and then set it up so that you can read off your answer directly from your diagram. Okay, that's it for these.